From the Chicago Sun-Times newsroom, I'm Natasha Korecki, and this is Off Message, our weekly political talk show. Joining me this week is our Springfield Bureau Chief, Dave McKinney. Very special guest from Washington, our Washington Bureau Chief, Lynn, and our columnist, Mark Brown. This week we're going to be doing a little bit of post-election stuff, and right out of the gates we have Bruce Rauner announcing that a bunch of independents and Democrats are behind him.
The reality is solving our problems is not partisan. Leadership is not partisan. Team building is not partisan.
Are these true blue Democrats? Is this the real deal here?
Well, I think you could start with the first real deal part of that being his wife, Diana.
This morning, I'm here as a lifelong Democrat, but also as Bruce's wife.
And of course, we didn't see her at all during the Republican.
She was very low-key in the primary, but the name that most longtime Chicago political followers would recognize was Newton Minow.
But I'm taking a leave of absence from my party because Illinois is in desperate shape.
A longtime Democratic lion here, appointee of John F. Kennedy, headed the Federal Communications Commission back in the early 60s. There was the Reverend Meeks, a whole slate of people that were part of the Democratic independent mix that Rauner's trying to draw.
You know, I was out there hearing him say every day on the campaign trail that he was a conservative Republican. And
We're living on the crumbs that the Democrats throw us. It's wrong. We've got to stand up and fight for principle.
so it's good for him to show that he has Democratic friends. And so, you know, it's
You don't sound too impressed by this.
Well, no, I'm not too impressed.
Well, here's what I think is really what's important, and I'm looking at the list now as we talk. What you have in this list of Democrats who have gone are some big Obama money people. Crown is on there, who is the Obama Illinois Finance Chair. Newton Minow is good for some fundraising, not a powerhouse. Sue Gin, who has been a Democratic fundraiser. But what you have here is a signal to the big money Democratic people in the area that maybe they should be writing checks too.
Well, another one of the people on that list, that Manny Sanchez.
That's why I'm here, because I know that Bruce Rauner is a centrist. And
He's a prominent Chicago lawyer, Hispanic. He was a Latino liaison for Obama. And what's interesting about his storyline is that he was one of the folks that Quinn had appointed to the Illinois Sports Facilities Authority. And when Quinn came in with a recommendation to appoint a woman that had worked on his staff as the lead of that agency, Sanchez balked, and he lost his job there, basically. So, we have a few people in this mix who might have an axe or two to grind against Governor Quinn.
Quinn is having a very interesting response this week. We've seen a couple different things on the political side and on the legislative side, particularly starting in Springfield. Can you talk about what's happening there?
Well, this is, when the Democrats come in this week talking about a coordinated campaign, we're seeing it truly on all fronts here. On Thursday, we've seen movement in Springfield on a minimum wage bill. That, of course, would raise the minimum wage to $10.65 by 2016, and if nothing else changes, that would be the highest in the country. This, again, shines a spotlight on Bruce Rauner and his inconsistent statements on the minimum wage.
And Lynn, you telegraphed this on election night. You said, look at where the Democrats are holding their unity breakfast the next morning at the Billy Goat. The Republicans are holding theirs at the Union League. We've now been seeing this class warfare theme come through.
There are fundamental differences between these Democratic candidates, Durbin, the Senate leader, Quinn, who basically do earn their living by having to work. They basically live on the paychecks they get. But when you contrast it to the Senate and governor contenders on the Republican side, it's multi-millionaire Oberweis versus multi, right up to maybe the billionaire Rauner. You are saying that you have great contrast to how most people in Illinois, even people who are pretty well-do, have to get through their lives.
Well, Quinn today rolled out a pretty hilarious commercial. He loves the character in The Simpsons, Mr. Burns.
You know who else brags about being in the 0.01%? This guy.
Excellent.
And the point of the ad was to say how both Burns and Rauner love bragging about their millions, so that fits right into the theme of these uber wealthy people and everybody else.
I think Quinn's got to be careful here, though. Just, you got to have a little finesse to this. And just going after these guys because they're rich people, he's got to keep tying it to things like, the minimum wage or some issue that shows that these guys are really instead of just saying that they've got so much money they're out of.
And one thing we neglected to mention about Springfield, at the same time there's movement on minimum wage, the House Speaker came out today with a proposal to tax millionaires. So we're seeing it on both ends here.
And the money is going to go toward?
The money will go towards schools. Yes. Who can complain about schools?
So, right. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the Guzzardi-Berrios race. What does this say about Mike Madigan's power when you look at Guzzardi, you look at Derek Smith, and some of the people he's backed.
It's a chink in the armor, clearly. A chink in his armor because, he invested a little bit of prestige, I mean, it took some chutzpah to go into, a district and say, Derek Smith, I voted to expel you from the Illinois House, but I'm going to support your campaign for re-election. And to lose that race like that, I think, was an embarrassment for the speaker. It is, no matter which way you cut it.
I think, first of all, you have to put Guzzardi on the list of political figures in Chicago to watch.
We demand to do leadership.
Whether or not he can make peace and function effectively in Springfield, I think we do know the guy knows how to organize and could probably get a platform, even if it...
I think it'll take him a couple of terms in Springfield, but yeah, easily his next platform, I think, could be Congress. It could be certainly a countywide thing, but we have to see how he works. Madigan, what we don't know now is whether Madigan's going to put a brick on every kind of legislation that he proposes.
So let me throw this out there just to think about. I know nationally the progressive organizations were put out releases. They see him as part of this progressive resurgence that's happening in some places. What's interesting here is that there's a victory, and they're...
Well, he's a fresh face.
Yeah.
He's a total fresh face in Springfield.
And one more thing for Lynn. So Oberweis-Durbin.
Yeah.
Oberweis went to Florida the week before his primary election. Can he get away with that kind of stuff? And what is he facing in the general?
Well, I doubt if he could get away with almost anything because the damage is done. The commercials could be made. His wife using and establishing a residence in Florida as a tax ploy. The suit, kind of goes back to our theme of what millionaires do.
Is that going to circle back and haunt him?
I think that even if Oberweis and Durbin themselves don't want to do certain things in their campaigns, what is out of their control is that third-party super PAC and independent groups still have that in their arsenal to use when they want to do the negative stuff.
I think back to that early commercial, the first commercial he aired.
I've been asked, why are you running again?
Where he talked about learning from mistakes,
I have made mistakes.
And here he stepped in it, and it's like that just seems to be the pattern in this guy's career where he just steps in it. I don't know. I think it'll be a fun fall.
Okay, let's go to our quotes of the week. Why don't we start with you, Mark?
Well, my favorite quote came out of that Guzzardi-Tony Berrios race. Our reporters sent back word that Tony Berrios, in defeat, was throwing back shots at the bar. And at some point she said, Will Guzzardi isn't even from Chicago.
Lynn, what do you have?
I talked to Senator Durbin on primary night. He was unopposed. And he has not had a campaign in 6 years. Those of us who are mere mortals and not millionaires ourselves are vulnerable.
I go back to Newton Minow, who, for most people in Chicago is a forgotten figure. I asked him today what JFK would have said about him basically changing sides, and he said, JFK said once that sometimes party loyalty asks too much, and I think this is one of those times.
Okay, and I have something from the same event. Diana Rauner, when she was talking about her husband, says, we need a warrior to go to battle for our children and for the future of our state, and it just made me think about all the armor that they will be needing in this war. With that, thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next week.